you don't actually believe anything. Let's even talk about how you believe, what you think about yourself. What are your beliefs about who you are? You don't actually believe anything about who you are. And let me explain what I mean by this. We think that our self-perception, we talk about our self-esteem and whether we think this individual is a worthy person or an unworthy person or a good person or not, or talented or untalented or intelligent or not intelligent. We think what happens is that we go out into the world and we have these experiences, and through objectively weighing up these experiences that we have, we come to this conclusion that forms a belief about what it is, who we are, whether we are worthy of love, whether we're worthy of success, whether we're good or bad or anything else. And that is not what happens. That is not the way these self-perceptions, this self-esteem is formed, or this lack of self-esteem is formed within us. We have these narratives, I call it the defective story that we have within us. It's around beliefs, right? And we think, well, I've come to this belief through experiences, lived experiences. What really happens, and Byron Katie tells us this, she says, there's only two options with these thoughts that enter our consciousness. We are either attaching to them or we're inquiring into them. But it's not really about believing them, because believing, we think, is about going out there and finding evidence, right, that proves to us the reality of the situation. We're either inquiring into these thoughts or we're attaching to the thoughts. The way it works is a thought will enter consciousness, and it usually happens very, very early in life. And it's going to be something around, what we didn't get in childhood forms these things. We're around people who are telling us negative things about ourselves. And I call it a seed. And we interject that. Now, we don't believe it, but it sits there within our consciousness, unchallenged. As Byron Katie says, you're either inquiring or you're attaching. Now, we're not inquiring. In other words, we're not questioning this narrative that we have received in childhood. You're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you'll never do anything, etc., etc. We're not believing it, but we're not inquiring into it, because there's no one around in childhood to tell us, you might want to look at that. That person doesn't know what they're talking about, right? There's no one around. But we don't really understand what it is, maybe. It doesn't feel nice, but we're not challenging it. But when we're not challenging it, what's going to happen is we're going to start to attach ourselves to it. And then what happens is that seed that we have entertained, we've been exposed to, starts to look out through our eyes into our life and collect evidence to support itself. Not the other way around. It's not a belief. It's not the evidence has presented itself and I formed belief. It starts off as a seed which looks out into the world to collect evidence to confirm itself. Right? So these beliefs that we have, they don't work the way we think they work. It's not objective. It's not a scientific process to come to rational conclusions about ourselves. Which is why, put it this way, a lot of our problems in our lives are caused by low self-esteem. I truly believe this. Because that low self-esteem, I'm not good enough, there's something wrong with me, will look out into the world to try and gather evidence. Right? And that some people describe that as self-sabotage. It's one way to describe it. But we can, what we really got to do is look and inquire into the original conclusion, the original assumption about ourselves, about who it is we think we are. That's what needs to be inquired into and challenged. And the problem with addressing this low self-esteem is that we don't do that part of it. We just try and put in competing ideas that I'm good, I like myself, I'm compassionate to myself, I'm worthy, I'm capable of success, I'm intelligent. But this hasn't been inquired into. So all we're trying to do is, instead of inquiring, is we're trying to gather new beliefs before we've inquired. What we got to do is challenge the narrative that we inherited usually in childhood, right? Maybe it was passed on from a parent or a grandparent or those around us. And if we can start to do that, if we can start to say, hang on, let me just really question this idea that there's something wrong with me, that I need to go and fix myself. Because what we're going to be living from is very limited choices. We're going to be in nervous system reactions all the time. We're going to be in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And we're fawning especially, trying to be people pleasers instead of really noticing what our value is and knowing it and living from that. But the inquiry part is, okay, I just need to question this. Is there... Yes, it will seem, if you have low self-esteem, it's going to seem as if there is a ton of evidence confirming the reality that there's something wrong with you. I take that as granted. I understand that. It will seem as if there's a ton of it. But what if it's related to, initially that seed was in place and it has began to gather this evidence, and because all the seed wants to do, something wrong with me, what does that want within us? It wants to survive. It's like anything else. That thought, that conclusion, that assumption about you wants to prove itself true. It can only continue to exist if there's enough evidence to support it. So it's going to do things. It's going to make you behave in certain ways and bring about conditions that will confirm and gather more evidence for it and keep you away from anything that would undermine this narrative. Right? That's a very important part of it. It doesn't want you to go and have positive experiences that would say, hang on, there's something fishy about this conclusion, that there's something wrong with me and I need to work harder and I need to keep everybody happy. So this is why, we want to, instead of trying to talk to ourselves in a good way, we need to challenge, we need to question the narratives that we inherited. And you will invariably find that there's nothing to them. And when you can do that, what you're going to be left with is the truth. And the truth is always loving. The truth is always life affirming. It gives you energy. It energizes you. Because the truth of who you are is that there is nothing wrong with you. There never has been anything wrong with you. You are absolutely worthy of love, of success, of being creative, of showing up, being authentic in the world and with other people, not having to hide yourself, not needing to fawn or fight or anything else, not needing to prove yourself. You don't have to prove yourself. Because really what the world needs is more of us out there being authentic, being who we really are. That's what the world needs. Never mind ourselves, which of course we need too. So we got to listen to our emotions. We got to listen to our bodies, because the body, the way I describe your emotions, because a lot of our emotions are going to be really negative emotions, especially when we have low self-esteem, right? A lot of depression, a lot of anxiety. But we have to listen to our emotions, because the emotions are really telling us the truth, the accurate state of the inward condition that we hold, right? They will just reflect back what is the narrative I'm holding very accurately. Now, the emotions don't tell you the truth of who you are, but they are an accurate reflection of who you currently believe you are. That's why they're so useful. So we got to find really what is this thing that I inherited a long time ago in my life, probably in childhood. Maybe I had really traumatic experiences. Maybe I had adverse childhood experiences. And how else would you come to a conclusion other than that, right? In that context. But so we keep inquiring. We listen to the emotions. We feel the body, and it's going to tell us exactly how I feel, what I think about myself, what I believe about myself. And then when we listen to it, we're able to actually start to ask it some questions. Is there any real evidence for this? If I actually look objectively, and more importantly, is there any evidence at all that I have been overlooking, or that my nervous system didn't want me to look at prior to now, that suggests that, in fact, the exact opposite of this is true? And when you can do that, you will invariably find that there's a ton of evidence around you to support the exact opposite belief in your life. I actually am worthy. I actually am intelligent. I am creative. I am worthy of success. I am capable. There's a ton of evidence for it. But with that initial seed not being challenged, it's very difficult to find. So that's why we've got to go in and challenge that one first. So inquiry is part of it, and then once we find this truth of who we are, this is who we have to start showing up as in our lives. Knowing that you are worthy. Knowing that there is absolutely no reason for you to be a people pleaser, or to put your needs last, or to sacrifice important needs that you have, pretend like they're not there. You don't have to do that. You show up as this authentic version of yourself. Well, not a version. Authentically yourself. Full stop. That's who you show up as. And that doesn't mean you show up bravado and you have everything together. When you show up being authentic, it means you show up with your needs, not hiding them. I have needs here, because your needs are really essentially, I would almost describe a person as their needs. That's who you are. You're open about them. And you're also vulnerable. So when you show up authentic, it doesn't mean you show up being invulnerable. It means you're totally aware that you have vulnerabilities as a person. Because that is a part of the human condition. You will never do enough work on yourself to get rid of the vulnerability that we all have. Two ways I describe human beings. One is desire, or you could say needs. We have needs. They're not going away. And the other one is vulnerability. When you're living from your needs and from vulnerability, really authentically, that's who you are. Let me put it this way. This self that you're trying to find, right? Well, that's a tricky job. But let's assume that yourself showed up one day. We could ask, instead of asking, well, who is it? How about you ask this question? What would it be doing if it did show up, this self, me? And I can tell you what it would be doing. It's very simple. It will be expressing itself. That's what the self is when it's known. It's there, showing up authentically, expressing itself, extending itself, sharing itself. It's very difficult to overlook it when it's doing that. That's what the self does. I don't know if there is a self here. I feel like there's an empty shell. It's because there's no expression. There's no expression of need. There's no expression of vulnerability. And it will feel as if there's no one here. There's no one at home. But they are always there. The self, you are always there. The self, because the needs can't go anywhere and the vulnerability can't go anywhere. It's just a matter of, is it being given space and permission to express itself? So that's what it would look like. But we got to do the work first. We got to figure out, okay, what did I inherit through my adverse childhood experiences? What kind of messaging was I around when I was younger? What was I told about myself? And to begin the process of just inquiring into the validity of that stuff that you learned. Because I can tell you, there's a lot of it that is garbage. Garbage. Not to mention the stuff that we didn't get that we probably should have gotten. But the stuff we were given that's toxic to us. Toxic to human thriving. So it's like, okay, well, is that real? Is that true? Is there any basis in that? Or was this a projection from somebody else? And we start to question, and then it becomes less about questioning and more about expression of the truth of who you are, which is the exact opposite of that messaging that we received when we were younger. So see yourself as being worthy of the work it takes to get to these revelations. It's one of the big blocks about, starting to do this process of questioning is a big block around that is the belief that, am I even worth doing that for? Am I worth doing it, putting in a little bit of time to ask some questions? You are. And it is worth it. In the end, it is so worth it because the self-sabotage goes away. The fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, people-pleasing goes away. The proving yourself goes away. And what starts to happen in your life is that you start to show up with your needs and your vulnerability, and you're expressing yourself honestly. And that is what the world needs, and that's what we all need. So you are worth it. You can cut to the end, and I said earlier, I don't like this idea of like putting nice sounding ideas on top of that original wounding or that original toxic idea that we picked up. But it's no harm to have sort of a signpost for where you're going to end up. There's nothing wrong with you. Here it is. There's nothing wrong with you at all. And it doesn't matter what you may have done or not done in your life. You do not deserve anybody's guilt, anybody's guilt trips, anybody's projections. You don't deserve hostility from anybody. Full stop. That's where you end up. You know that that's true. And you are absolutely worthy of love. You're as good as anybody else. You're not better than anybody else, but you're not worse than anybody else. You're absolutely worthy of love, respect, being taken care of, being set as a priority for yourself and from other people who are close to you, being seen as important and valuable. That's who you are. That's who you're going to end up as. And in that context, it's a lot easier to show up as your authentic self and express yourself. Okay, I hope there's something in there for you that you're able to resonate with. And I think I'll leave it there for now. But I think really what this video is a little bit rambling, I suppose, but really it's about the work of inquiry and into how do you start to show up as yourself through the process of inquiry and developing true self-love and self-compassion. Take care, and I will be back with another video in the very near future. Take care. Bye-bye.